All right, Rocco, thank you for coming to the podcast. Welcome. And I love your idea for the podcast as well. You're one of the few people who's come in wanting to do things a little bit different. So, per your request, we'll go ahead and start with a very short introduction and then move into just adding value. What is recruitment like? How do you succeed there? What is the mindset of a top biller or top performer? So, yeah, could you let us know a little bit about what brought you into recruitment?
I'm just like everybody else, except for I was a CAR on the JET program, and I was one of those underutilized jets who had 3 hours worth of work to do in an 8 hour a day, and all the downtime I was checking Gmail 9 times an hour. And it was enough. It was a good job and everything, and helped me to develop my Japanese chops and all that. And then one day at one of the JET mid-year seminars, we saw the keynote speaker was somebody working at Wall Street Associates. And the guy was just full on the entire time speaking in Japanese, and he's talking about big picture stuff and having goals and achieving work. I mean, it's just a very charismatic and impressive speech. And I was like, oh, that's cool. Oh, I want to find out more about this company. So me not knowing anything, I phoned up the company. It was Wall Street Associates, right? I just phoned up the company and I said, I saw your guy at like the presentation, and he was really impressive, and I'm coming up to Tokyo. I'd like to learn about your company. And they me just thinking I could come in and say hi, right? But they're like, do you have a resume that you can send us? Like, yeah, sure. So. And then there I got, wrangled into the interview process. So like what started off as like maybe a 30-minute meeting turned into like this, this Shark Tank of interviews. And I met tons of people. All of them were great. And I wound up taking the job, not really knowing what I was going to be doing.
I guess the unique part was that you were a CIR. I always saw the CIRs, this is just my bias, as a little bit more nerdy, like kind of not so sales oriented almost. Like we were just slacking off as ALTs and they were actually like putting in the work, and they had great Japanese and everything. So, but it's interesting, yeah.
Oh, you don't need to make any additions to your original comment of CIRs being nerdy. Like I 100% fit that bill. And as somebody who is like, deep into table tennis and chess, like, no, man, I'm a hardcore nerd, like where I am. So no,
I love
you're
that.
exactly right. You hit the nail right on the head. Overthinkers and just, way too much effort into one degree. And then coming to Japan and realizing that like most of what you learn doesn't really work. Plus, like, there's way more kanji that you have to learn, and just quickly realizing all of your deficiencies. So, yeah, if you allow me to add that to your definition of, nerdy cerebral types, I think we have a good picture of what CIRs are. So
Yeah, but I think the most impressive thing is just that you have, like you said, you've made it in this industry for so long, and you built your own company as well, and it's just something that's rare for anybody to do. So I'm curious how that transition was. Like, what do you think is the key to success, I guess, in recruitment? And if we can jump into that.
yeah, sounds good. So again, what I think is like the three questions slash stressors that people have when they're thinking about getting into recruiting or they're doing recruiting. We can touch on those. And I think a lot of people, especially if they're on JET or they're Eikaiwa, they know that they don't want to be doing that long term. And recruiting is an option for them that doesn't require native Japanese. Or you can do the job with limited amount of Japanese skills. But they're not sure if they want to do recruiting long term, right? So they want to get into the job, but not sure if they want to do it long term. Like, what mindset should they have if they decide to get into our industry? So what I think is really important, and I'll kind of break down here for the listeners, is that if you do decide to do recruiting, you should give it your absolute best and pick like a period of time that you're going to do it. Hopefully 2 to 3 years. Because if you just say, I'm going to try recruiting for a year, you're just in for a lot of pain and lessons that you're not going to be able to utilize year 2 and year 3. It'll be a terrible experience if you say, I'm only going to do it for a year, in my opinion. So I would say pick an interval. Give your absolute best effort, all of your quality, all of your focus to recruiting for 2 to 3 years and see where you go. And if you decide that you want to pivot to something else afterwards, that's totally fine. Okay. Why is it important to give everything to recruiting? Well, you have to understand what the expectations are from the clients and from the candidates. So I'll set up a little scenario for somebody who might not quite understand what it is that we're doing. All right, imagine one of your clients is the Japan president of a U.S. branch here in Japan, maybe 50, 60 people, right? And that Japan president's responsible for the entire organization. And they've just fought tooth and nail with a U.S. leadership team that's highly skeptical about how Japan does business and why everything is done over here this different way. But the Japan president's very convincing, and he gets buy-in from them about his business plan and initiatives he's going to launch here in Japan. Okay? U.S. company sends millions of dollars over so that this Japan president can execute. The stakes, the future of the company, all depends on this plan going well. And as this managing director is going through everything, he needs to make a key hire. You realize, okay, I need to have this person in this role in order for me to execute my plan. And he types up a job description. That job description is sent to your company, and you are assigned the recruiter to help find people for that key position, right? So what type of recruiter, what type of person do you think that managing director wants to deal with, right? It's not somebody who's just, okay, maybe I'm going to try this job. Like, they're going to want somebody that can deliver high quality introductions and help them actualize their plan. And if they get the feeling that you're kind of, your mind is straddling two different things, or you're not quite there, you come with a response like, I'll check our database, I'll get back to you kind of thing. It's going to be a bad experience for you and for that managing director, and it's just going to cause pain, right? That's on the client side, right? So I think more importantly is on the candidate side. And this is an experience that you'll especially deal with if you're handling small to medium-sized companies, right? Set up this scenario. You have a single mother who is working at a small-size European company. And she's worked there diligently for 10 years with the expectation that the business is going to be stable and she can have steady income coming in. She's just completely loyal, does everything that the company wants. Probably a back office person, right? This small-sized European company one day is purchased by a large-sized European company. The large-sized European company makes tons of redundancies. She's on the chopping block. She loses her job, right? And of course, she feels betrayed. And of course, there's lots of mixed emotions that she has, and probably has a very, very rough weekend, lots and lots of stress, might even be crying or emotional, kids looking up, Mom, what's wrong, right? And she finally pulls herself together, and she updates her resume. She submits that to a recruiting company. You are assigned as the recruiter to try and help that person get back on their feet. So what type of recruiter do you think that person wants to deal with, right? You have to be trying your hardest at this job, and you have to give it everything that you can. And if you do, you'll get lots of rewards and accolades coming back. People will recognize that you're very serious about the role. You'll add value, and the job becomes sustainable because, yeah, you have to do lots of work and lots of telephone calls and you get lots of no's, but in the times when it does work and you add value and everybody's really happy with your service, it's a win-win-win all around, it'll keep you going, right? So I think it's important that you give everything you've got to recruiting. And if you do it that way, it can be a very, very rewarding job. So I don't know, what was it like for you, and how did you find recruiting? How did you get your success? I mean, did you notice other people in the office that had same mindset, different mindset? Like, what was it like for you?
Hmm. Yeah, I was full throttle from day one. I didn't look at LinkedIn basically or Facebook, Instagram, like no social media whatsoever during work hours ever. I was fully invested, staying like first one, maybe not the first one in the office, but last one in the office. Um, so yeah, I was pretty invested, to be honest. Maybe at the very end, I was losing it and I was straddling. And that's kind of the period that I regret most is not having either left earlier or made a bunch more money and then left. But kind of straddling it, like you said, clients and candidates could feel it, and it was just making my performance go down too. So totally not worth it to stay in that position. But also going back to something you said in the beginning about staying for 2 to 3 years, my Shacho, the CEO of my company, said the same thing. He took us aside, like some new joiners, and he told us at over a nice French dinner or French lunch. He was like, all I want, I think the most kakoi thing that you can do is to come into into a company and work for 3 to 5 years and then leave. And I was like, yeah, I can see you reacting to this. So I always had that in my mind, like, I'm just going to give it 3 years. And I ended up giving it five. Um, some people give it their whole life, right, as well. So I told him that. And I think when I was quitting, I mentioned that comment that he made. And he was kind of like, oh, I shouldn't have said that in that way. Um, but yeah, or maybe he didn't. Yeah, I think what he was trying to say is like he wanted people to learn and kind of understand the process first and then make changes and then like do if they didn't want to stay they could like do something else. But after 2 years in the job, I would have never gotten the rewards. 3 year mark was when I started to really see you know the money stacking up, and um basically my salary like doubled every single year for the time I was a recruiter. So like you said, I think I really like the candidate and client perspective because people do not think about that when they're in recruitment. They just see they're joining and they hear their boss telling them to hit the phones, but they don't see the background of how much pressure that those hiring managers are under or how much stress those candidates, their busy schedule. That's why they're not replying to you. It's not because they hate you. They don't care. They just are trying to survive, basically, like keep their head afloat. So that's one side. And then the fact that, yeah, once you start doing that a lot and you touch a lot of people's lives, then it starts coming back to you that country manager who you helped make a placement on their team, all of a sudden they have another mandate of 10 more people, right? Than in 2 years from now or something, if that plan goes well. So yeah, it's exponential.
Yeah, and Levi becomes the go-to guy, right? So
Yeah, exactly.
when you become the go-to guy, well, okay, now the job is sustainable, right? But you don't become the go-to guy in your first 6 months. It takes some time.
Mm, yeah, definitely. And people want an expert, and you're gonna make mistakes anyway in the beginning. So,
A
but
little side note on that. I'll tell a little story.
please, yeah.
I had one client. I was assigned like an associate finance director search, and I'm dealing directly with the CFO as a client, as an account that was given to me. And I was probably 6 months into recruiting, and so of course I didn't know what I was doing. And so I introduced the wrong profiles. I'm just all in sales mode. Like, yeah, you really have to meet this person. She's like, okay, I'll meet your candidates, and then she doesn't like my candidates, rejects my candidates, and I keep hounding her on the phone. Just eventually she stops calling back, right? I mean, rightfully so. And so, I thought, well, okay, I guess I botched that one up. And then, like, lo and behold, like a year later, I get a call from this lady, the CFO, and I pick up, hello, this is Rocco. Oh, you're still here? Yeah, hi. Can I help you? Right? And then she was like, oh, yeah, I need help with like a senior accountant search. And like, you're like the fifth person I've called. And, I'm wondering I'm surprised that you're still here. Can you please help me? I was like, yes, of course. Right. And so I take the job board, I hang up the phone. I was like, I'm the man. Look at that. And then I started thinking, I was like, wait a second. I was number 5 on the list, right? Like,
Yeah.
she was probably like, and then she called me, right? So,
Mm.
but just the staying power, just sticking
Yeah.
around a year later means that person came back to you. Now, if I would have
Mm.
done my job correctly in the first place, then I wouldn't have had to gone through that embarrassing experience.
Mm.
But
Mm-hmm.
you're right. It will come back in year 3 or a little bit further onward. So it's a good thing to keep in mind. But I specifically mentioned these 2 examples because this is what happens, and nobody tells you like this is what happens, and like these are the stakes, and this is what people are anticipating. So if you think that you're just going to wing it or not really try to get better at your job, like people are going to understand that, oh, this person's not committed, right?
Mm.
And then you get ghosted, and then just all the bad stuff starts happening. So going back to the original point, just be ready to give your best effort for whatever it is you decide to do in recruiting. Give your best effort, do it for 3 years, and you should be fine, right?
Mm. Yeah.
You said you did lots of overtime?
Overtime, yeah, I did quite a bit of overtime.
Okay.
There
What
was
kind
no
of over
working hours, so it was all,
what kind
yeah.
of overtime were you doing? Like your hours, like when would you get to the office and then when would you leave?
I wasn't really like a early morning person, so maybe like 8:30 or something. But I would stay until at least 8:30 and sometimes 11, 12, like occasionally if they really demanded it. But it was probably consistent like 12-hour days, I would say.
Oh, yeah,
And I would
you're
come
hard.
in the first like year or two. I purposely lived near the office, even though it was more expensive and I was losing money every month on my associate salary. But I was like, I want this. And so back up against the wall now, all my jet savings are going down. I had no choice but to go for it. And I would walk to work on Saturdays and I would like do some notes and stuff for a couple of hours and catch up on emails. And yeah, I don't know. Do you find that standard? I mean, maybe that's kind of extreme, but no
No,
one told me that I have to do that.
no, well,
But
yeah, that's very much what my experience was like too, and it's
mm,
totally not sustainable. So
no.
that's a very nice segue into my next point here. I think a lot of people are probably thinking recruiting has lots of overtime. You know, whether they're doing it now or they're doing a job that they have tons of overtime, or they're thinking about getting into it. Like, can I have work-life balance?
Mm,
And my answer to that is a resounding yes, you can. You
mm,
absolutely can. But there's a couple of things that a couple of principles that you have to abide by. First thing to understand is that recruiting is like a never-ending treadmill. Like it's not going to stop. So if you work 12 hours per day, or if you work a solid 9 hours per day, like there's just going to be more for you to do when you come back. And if you're on the
mm-hmm,
treadmill for 24/7, okay, you're going to fall off and hurt yourself. So you have to pick the amount of time that you're going to be working. 8 hours, 9 hours, maybe at the very beginning of the week. Okay, you put on a 10-hour day on Monday and Tuesday, and then you taper back, and then by the time it's Friday night, you finish up at 6:30 and you paint the town red. You should be doing that if you're young and you have money and you're in Tokyo for the first time. So you need to pick the hours that you're going to work and just like really stick to that. Okay, the next thing that you need to do, mindset points, it's very, very important, is have extreme focus. And what do I mean by that? You need to have constant activity. Constant activity means you're either meeting with or on the phone with your clients and your candidates. And any other activity is secondary. So that's it. Talking with your clients or candidates on the phone or over video chat all day long for the period of time that you're comfortable with and that you can sustain, right? Why is this important? Well, you can get the best information when you're talking with somebody, when you're asking them questions, right? And with good information, you can come up with the best action plan, which leads to the best results. So naturally, by having this constant activity, your efficiency will go up because you will be, instead of chasing whatever ball is sent to you, or like, oh, hey, there's a job that's posted on here, I'm going to take 3 hours and conduct a search. Unless that client or candidate will talk with you, or unless you can do some discovery beforehand, you're not going to take action on it. Let it go. So on the phone with your clients and candidates as much as you can, be actioning upon great information. And the one thing you should not be doing is doing your sales over email. My God, do not try and convince somebody to take action over an email. You ever get a text from one of your friends or get an email from a client and you're like, what did they mean by that, right? And you take it totally the wrong way. Well, there's an element to it there. Two, it's inefficient. You have to wait for it to come back. And three, you can blow off an email. And then you've just taken all of your time sending the email. So email is a confirmation tool, not a communication tool. So I think this is, extreme focus is very important. Okay, next part of it. You have to maximize efficiency. And somebody that's successful at recruiting, that picks the amount of time that they're going to be working, will always be looking for a faster way to do everything. And you never waste time, right? So that means you have to use your tools wisely. You have to figure out quicker ways to do your resume formats, figure out quicker ways to use your database, resume submission emails, job description write-ups, whatever it is. Try to get faster at it, just with everything. Make that a bucket that you're always going to spend time to try and do if you decide to sharpen the saw. And don't waste time. You'll see people, I was surprised, I'd see people in the office that were behind target that would be sitting John with one another about soccer or whatever, what happened Friday night or this sort of stuff, right? And I just like, look, your clients can talk to you from 9 until 6 and that's it, man. The clock is ticking. Let's get on the phones. So you're wasting time that's actually a huge cost to it. So if you spend 10 minutes, either you have an inefficient process or you're not focused or you're BSing with one of your friends, you waste 10 minutes a day. It doesn't seem like much, but in 10 minutes you can do 2 outbound telephone calls, right? Pick up the phone, dial, hang up, write a note. Pick up the phone, dial, right? You can do 2 outbound telephone calls. 2 outbound telephone calls per day is 10 calls per week, which is 40 calls per month. From 40 telephone calls, you can probably get 2 jobs. That's a 5% hit ratio. That's realistic, I think. From those 2 jobs, you get extra 2 jobs per month. Well, that's going to be 24 jobs over the course of the year. And if you close 1 out of 6 of those jobs, that's 4 jobs per year. Average 3 million yen fee, that's 12 million yen. At 30% sales commission, that's 3.6 million yen that you just put in your pocket, right? I mean, you can argue with my model, you can argue with these numbers, and it's not, it's carved rough, in stone, right? Yeah.
No, but it's true. It's completely true.
But it drives the point home. Mm-hmm. So, and then let's say, for instance, you could just find an extra 10 minutes that you parlay over into some more BD calls. Like over the course of a recruiting career, 2 to 3 year recruiting career, that's the difference between having a very nice commission check and getting promoted and closing more of your deals versus just chugging along kind of mediocre and then the job doesn't become worth it, right?
Yeah.
So in my opinion, you have to maximize efficiency as well as have extreme focus, constant activity. Mm-hmm. So it sounds like you were doing that at your company too, though, right? But not for 12 hours a day?
I mean, that was the first couple of years, and it changed probably year 3, 4, 5. But I guess just to play devil's advocate a little bit is our mindset in the company was this is not a 9 to 5 job. And so your hours are not set. And that was the culture. And for better, for worse, like everyone was making a lot of money. I think the average person was making 60 mil a year. And so it was, 60 to 100 mil billers all around you. And people, some of them had good work-life balance. They would take 3 months off during the year and come back, and there's high flexibility. But at the same time, we were saying you're kind of like a firefighter. When there's a fire, then you have to go round the clock for however long it takes, right? So if a new job comes in, it's 7 p.m. on a Friday and you want to go out with your friends, sorry, if it depends what you want. If you want to have that success and that's more important to you, then you go for that. But I'm curious your thoughts on that because I have experienced also that just being around for that 7 p.m. call and then putting in the work on a Friday to get some candidates in does produce results as well, and it does kind of set you above. But what's your perspective on that? Maybe it's a tough question, but
I would say there's merit to doing it that way. If I was in the same situation and somebody phoned me up on Friday night, it's a CFO, he says, hey, I'm going to be in the office, I'm going to be around on, Monday, I need candidates, my number 2 guy just quit, I need people right away, and I have a pretty good opportunity of making a quick placement, well then yeah, I would do it, I would do the search. The key is, how long does it take you to do your search? Which goes back to the maximum efficiency, right? Mm-hmm. If you can do your search in 15 minutes, well, it's nothing at all. Mm-hmm. If you can do while you're talking with that hiring manager, you're typing up the job description, you're fixing it, and you're shortlisting candidates as you go. Well, it's not going to take that much time now, is it, right? Mm-hmm. So the two of them go hand in hand. So I would say is you should, it's a speed show, but it's a shootout, right? Whoever gets the candidates fastest wins. But if you're much, much faster with your processes, you're going to win more than you lose. Mm-hmm. But I agree. I would take the hungry recruiter approach, and I would try and cover off all my candidates so that, the guys on Monday morning, when they get the email in their inbox, all of the best people have already been contacted and agreed to send up for the role by CareerScout, right? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So I agree.
Yeah, I think the efficiency and the speed is the key.
And it won't come straight away, but if you make that your focus, right? There's all sorts of stuff that you can worry about in recruiting, right? Will my candidate sign? Will there be hiring freeze? All stuff. There's things that are within your circle of control, and there's things that aren't. Maximizing efficiency and staying extremely focused is 100% within your control. Yeah. So now it's just you being disciplined. And if you can do that, and that is no longer a variable but a constant in your recruiting equation, you're winning, right? Or you can figure out where you can grow and develop. So to your point, I think it's good. Now, if my manager told me, if I was hitting all of my targets and I was getting all of my billings and my manager had some different perspective about the work that I was doing, or, Levi, thanks for billing 100 million yen, but old Scooter over here, he's staying until 12 o'clock at night every night. I don't know. I would have a coffee with that manager, and so it's a little bit more of mature director. I've managed people before. I kind of know what to do in this situation if you have a manager that's saying this. But I would say, especially if you're young, one mindset trick, and this is something that's on my agenda here, I'm kind of spitballing it, but I would say don't look at your manager as somebody who is there to boss you around and tell you what to do, and that's like a monkey that's on your back. Think of your manager as your resource, and your success and your manager's success is tied together. It's a symbiotic relationship. And so what I would do is I would look at my manager and talk with him. I'd say, boss, here's what I think is important given my mandate. I have these sales targets. This is my plan for hitting these sales targets. Here's when I'm going to be working. I'm planning on getting on the treadmill and off the treadmill at this time. This is when I'm going to work. And these are the activities that I'm going to do during the work. And so, as you can see, I've blocked everything off for this week. These are the total number of hours that I'm going to be doing BD calls. These are the total number of hours I'm going to be doing candidate sourcing. And after that, I'm going to refresh, and I'm going to, do my table tennis, or I'm going to enjoy my surfing or ukulele or whatever. And I'm going to come back and hit it with full capacity moving forward from here. So this is my idea. This is my plan. What additions would you like to make for this plan? Right? Like, I think that's a huge skill that new recruiters and new people should learn, is how to manage their manager. And don't think that person is there just to make your life hell. If you win, they win. And so you have the right and the I think it's in your own best interest to go and tell that person what you want to do. And if they have a different perspective, or they explain to you what the flaws that are in your approach, you should really listen to that person, because there's a reason why they're a manager. And look at their track record, and give them the benefit of the doubt, adjust your plan. But the two of you should co-create a plan about how you move forward. And if working until 12 o'clock is just not realistic for you, you got to make that very clear to your boss. And if they still tell you got to do it, then find another job. Come apply to CareerScout.
There we go. The plug.
I know.
Yeah, I see people in two different, just broadly speaking, two different situations with their manager. They're either with someone who is like really micro, who is kind of feeling like that monkey on their back. And that's what I was experiencing in my old company. And we really didn't mesh well. We got along well at the very end, actually, but it took us a lot of butting heads, because I wanted to be left alone, and he wanted to know exactly what was going on at all times. And like you said, like, what is your plan exactly for how many calls you're going to make at this time? I was like, just give me the mission, give me the target, and I'm going to go get it. And then the other side, I think, is people that don't have a manager really present. Like, they're very macro manager, I guess, and they don't have someone who they are learning from at all, or the person is kind of uninterested in teaching them, and so they feel almost bad about wasting their time, right? Or like, can I ask this question to this person, and they want a bit more guidance. So, but I've been able to help both of these people through coaching, in different ways, obviously. But yeah, like you said, the manager's kind of, we called it like your jungle guide, who's guiding you through this, like, with a wilderness.
That's
and
good.
Both of you will die, right, without each other there. So
this is really good. I like that. That's good.
Yeah.
Well, here's another thing too. It's like, okay, if recruiting is your first sales job, the way to manage your manager, there's two kind of key principles here that you want to take into consideration. And this is not like a Roccoism or something that I made by myself. There's a great book called Business Without the Bullshit. It's a very provocative title. I grabbed it. I'm a sucker for those. I grabbed it right off the shelf. I was like, what is this, right? And I looked at it. In chapter 2, in Business Without the Bullshit, there is an entire chapter that talks about managing your manager. And in that chapter, it says that you need to think about what your boss wants and what's important for your boss. And the two cardinal sins: one, keeping your boss in the dark, and two, surprising your boss, right? So if I was your boss and you're kind of, new recruiting consultant, you're like, hey man, just leave me alone. Like, I got it. It's like, no. I company's investing in you by paying your salary every day. I want to see how we're going to get a return from this investment. And then once you start getting some results, okay, then your relationship with your manager changes, right? So I don't know, if I was your manager, I'd be hey, okay, I got it. I like where this is going. I think we're doing it just a little bit too early. Let's come up with a plan together and figure out, let's have some deliverables, and then understand when Levi's plan is going off the rails and when I need to get involved. And if everything's going well and you can just let me know that you're consistently hitting these numbers, cool, you got all the autonomy, man. I don't want to be, pardon the phrase, I don't want to be up your ass all the time. That's not fun for me. So let's co-create this together and move forward. So that managing your manager part, I think, is big, because it can make your life hell in a recruiting job.
Completely. Yeah. I made it way harder than it had to be honest. Like, I wish I had that book earlier, but
this is why we're having this podcast, Levi. Look at how much value that we're adding, like generations of recruiters are going to watch this and remember it. And just like the relationship for the managers and new recruiters is going to be fantastic. So see, we're
Mm,
adding value. Your
yeah.
perspective is useful.
Yeah, what I guess there was like a middle ground that we had come to also with he was very process oriented and I was not as process oriented. But there was a middle ground that worked for both of us. It wasn't like daily reports. Like maybe we could do daily reports for a week and then okay, you trust me, now we'll do weekly reports. And then I wish that it had gone to like bi-weekly reports, but it didn't really ever. Um, but I think that yeah, the middle ground there and like building the trust what was very important. Something that I did with people that I was managing also. I mean, managing is so hard. I only managed a team of three, and it was a very short
Mm.
period. It was like less than it was like a year for the three and 2 years for one. But I remember starting off, and the lady under me was telling me I'm way too soft. She's like, you have to be way more strict on me. And then I was like, okay. And then the next people came in, and I was like treating them the same as I treated her, with a little bit more force, like a little bit more like just do this. And if you did something wrong, I'm just gonna tell you you effed up, you know? And
Mm.
then they were like, oh my gosh, Levi is a monster manager. And so I had to then scale it back for them. So management is just, it's freaking tough. I don't know. How many people are at Career Scout right now?
Right now, it's 9 of us all together. We have
Okay.
7 salespeople, including me, 1 marketing, 1 Huckin staff, admin staff that's supporting. So,
Okay, gotcha. And you're
you
managing
know,
everyone, or you have like a sub manager, or how
uh,
does that work?
yeah, like we have like top billers in this office that I think work rather autonomously. I mean,
Mm,
I don't manage them, to be quite
mm-hmm.
frank. If they need something, I get it for them. We have a weekly catch up. We talk big picture stuff. But
Wow.
if you say, am I managing them per se? No. They know what they're doing and
Mm,
they have their own yearly business plan that they're executing upon. Like I try to stay out of their way because that's
that's
how I would
awesome.
want to be managed if I was in it. And then we have
Mm,
3 people who are newer to recruiting. And so I spend more time with them. And a big part of it is we have a sales process that says if you get a deal to the second interview stage and it looks like it's going well, get your manager involved, right?
mm,
Let's talk about the next action plan and then execute. And
mm-hmm.
so with them, I'm a little bit more hands-on, I would say. When you first
Mm-hmm.
start training somebody, then yes, you're there all the time. You're having morning check-ins, evening check-ins. Your management ratio is much higher because they have to learn the system first. They have to have some sort of
Mm-hmm.
foundation rather than,
Yeah.
trying to reinvent the wheel. So you have to teach them that system and do lots of course corrections. And if you've got somebody who's coachable and who asks questions and then takes that on board and shows progress, even if it's slow and steady progress, you got a winner. That person's going to be fine, right? So, but then once they start to get, you know, on their feet and they're doing all the right activities, and it's like, all right, you got your autonomy. As long as you're hitting your numbers, you got your pipeline. I'm happy. Tell me what you need. But if we're
Mm,
missing, we don't have the pipeline and we don't have the numbers, then the manager needs to go and look at activity, right? And
mm-hmm.
unfortunately, that's the not so fun part of the management job, but hey, you got to do it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you let that person go way off course, and then you have to have a way more difficult conversation rather than, hey, your numbers are not looking so good, right? And
Mm,
that conversation sucks. It's never fun.
yeah.
So
And you've seen a lot of people, I guess, coming in and out, probably of recruitment. So I'm curious what your perspective is as someone who's stayed with it and loves it. Like, what is the difference between the people who are staying able to stay with it?
the people who are able to stick with it, I don't know if there's a unifying character trait, Levi. Like everybody's different. Everybody I think, had their strengths that they deployed.
Mm.
I think the most successful recruiters, they typically find a core business. They find a patch that they own, that they can
Mm-hmm.
be that they can be number one at, right? And they just keep digging into that patch. They stay there.
Mm-hmm.
That's one thing. Everybody figures out what their strength is. Uh, if you're a very relationship type of person, then you utilize that. You're doing more networking. You're spending more time with your candidate meetings, client meetings, lunches, dinners, these sort of stuff. Uh, you have more transactional recruiters or process-driven recruiters, volume recruiters who I would say are more type A personality. I fall into that bucket, more of like, rather than a super people person, I'm more of like a task-driven or task-oriented person. So I'm super good at getting all of those tasks done and handling a huge volume of work. So I find that I'm super satisfied when I get all that work done. You have other people who I think they just nerd out like on their specialism. Like they just love the product. I think there's one guy who even trademarked his name. I don't know where he is, and I don't even know if I've never met the guy, but like I think on LinkedIn his name is Supply Chain Wayne or something. Have you seen this guy before?
I've seen him on LinkedIn,
I
yeah.
think he Supply Chain Wayne. Like I mean, I'm just assuming that he loves everything about supply chain, right? And the work that it's done, the people that they're doing. So I would say it's like they find something that they really, really enjoy, and that
Mm-hmm.
becomes their sense of satisfaction for the job.
Mm-hmm.
And then the actual making placements of it is a byproduct of something that they enjoy or find satisfaction doing, right? The other thing I would say is going back to like the treadmill analogy is they know when their on and off periods are
Mm.
and schedule leisure. That is very important because you need time just to completely get away from recruiting and let your mind relax. And if you can do that by focusing on something else, um, for example, your detox retreats, I think are fantastic. That's such a good idea, and I want to go the next time schedule permits, right? But like, that's great to go out in nature and then just forget about recruiting, forget about your phone. That's good.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, me, like I'm unhealthily addicted to table tennis, right? So I play 3 times a week, you
Wow.
know, straight up nerd, as I told you before, as you pointed out, as a CIR. So I think scheduling the leisure and then having that strong on off is very important,
Mm.
and that's probably one of the reasons why people do it long term, right?
Yeah.
And take the job seriously too.
For sure. Yeah, and I think going back to something we were talking about initially is if you do work that Friday late, maybe you even sacrifice plans with your friends or you show up late to that dinner or event, then taking the day off on the next Friday, you've done the work, you've put in the time to fill this role, or you've gotten as many candidates for it and you've stayed overtime, but now, you know, you still need to rest. You still need to do something fun or relaxing, rejuvenating. So, okay, half day on Friday or full day on Friday kind of thing.
Yeah, there's several different strategies you can use. As I mentioned before, there's the taper strategy where you front load a lot of your activity on Monday and Tuesday, and then by Friday, you're
Mm-hmm.
leaving on time. Okay. The other one is like having sprint periods.
Mm-hmm.
Like we'll sprint from in the office. We'll say, okay, this is like a sprint time for this month. We're going to sprint. We're going to try and be super disciplined about making calls from 12 until 1 and then one other time off hours. So use flex time. Come in later, come in earlier, and then have 2 hours of candidate calling sessions. Like all of us are going to do this as a team. Let's get some candidates. We're going to sprint until Golden Week. Then we're going to take a nice vacation. I expect all of you to be submitting, 5 days leave and just completely unplug, right?
Mm.
So there should be some times when, yeah, you do sprint, but you can't sprint the entire time, right? You need to have a
Yeah.
short burst of activity, get the results into your pipeline and then
Mm.
coast a little bit or go back to your normal routine. Sometimes you need to have these calibrations as you go along.
Mm.
So,
Absolutely. Nice.
but
I think we
anyway,
have time for maybe one more. Do you have anything else?
yeah. The last thing that I was going to say that most new recruiters worry about is not being scared that they don't know anything about their specialism
Mm.
and they think that they're going to get found out by some executive, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you just imagine that he's like in the movies, like you have this guy who's doing a presentation, he's standing in like the boardroom, and you have all these, these old executives who are standing at him, and you get some guy who's says like, hey, wait a minute, you don't know what you're talking about, do you? Right? And then he's just completely embarrassed and oh my god, right? Oh, I don't know anything about
Mm.
my clients or the specialism, so you're gonna have like this terrible experience. Okay, first of all, yeah, I understand that fear, but it's not a realistic fear, and that never happens. Your
Yeah.
client is, you're not going to get grilled in front of everybody because you don't have 20 years of expertise like your clients or candidates do, right?
Mm.
Your
And they don't expect
expertise,
that.
no, they don't, right? Your expertise is going to come from knowing the candidate market. So let's just say, for instance, you have a CFO. If that CFO is lucky, maybe he'll meet a handful of accounting managers in an entire career. Maybe 5, 10, 15. If he does lots of recruiting over and over again, maybe more than that, right? 10, 15 accounting managers, a good recruiter will meet that many in 1 to 2 weeks. And so over the course of 2 or 3 years, well, you've met dozens, hundreds of accounting managers. So really your expertise and your knowledge is from knowing all the people, which is expertise that the CFOs don't have, right?
Mm.
So when the CFO is telling you like, hey, I need an accounting manager and they have to have skill 1 and skill 2, as a recruiter, you can say, okay, I understand why you want that, but I've just conducted 10 different accounting manager searches. There's only 1 or 2 people that can do that job. Your search universe is very, very small right now. Instead, why don't you try to hire a senior accountant and 1 huck-in staff? There's lots of candidates that are available in this area. I might be talking myself out of a sale for an accounting manager job, but a senior accountant should do the trick. Oh, well,
Mm.
you demonstrated your expertise, you added value, you figured out some way that you can help your client save some cash. I mean, you're definitely going to get the call back. So this is where your expertise comes in, and that's how you're going to build your reputation. Not by knowing everything about the up-to-date tax laws. I'm just not going to know that as well as somebody who's worked in PwC tax for 10 years, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't think they want that from you. They want you to know the candidate market, like you said. And also, even if you don't fully know these things, I think the other thing I would add to that is it's okay to let them know where you're at in terms of your knowledge. I mean, you should know the candidate market for sure, but if they tell you, if they say something about tax projects and you have no idea what they're talking about, then don't pretend like you know, because you're gonna look silly, right? Just get it over with and tell them, can you explain that to me so that I can go back to my candidates and be talking to them, and that's how you learn, right? And you won't have to be embarrassed the next time. So that's my
Yeah.
opinion. I don't know.
No, you're totally right. A great line to parry that, like, well, wait, do they have blah, blah, blah? And you're like, oh, shoot, I don't know what that is, right? A
Hmm.
great way to come back to that line is just to say, like, oh, that's a great question. I focused the bulk of my interview talking about, their expectations for their next role and why they want to transition into your company, and then, if they have references or not. So it's an excellent skill-based question. So 1, I can go back and interview them and get that information for you, or 2, I'll just let them know to talk about that during the interview. Would you like to meet this person? A little
You are a
Aikido.
natural salesman. Is that the Aikido move right there?
Well, you have like the thrust and parry, right? Like
Yeah, yeah,
that
yeah.
happens a lot when you're having your client meeting. Your candidate's going to ask you that stuff too, like all the time. Like you're going to have to pitch a job and you have imperfect information.
Mm.
And then they're, what about
How
this and what about that? Go ahead.
how did you learn this stuff? Like I mean, because I was a nerd too, to be honest. And when I came in, they were teasing me about being a nerd. They called me RoboCop, was like my nickname, and I was really into Japanese as well. So, but I'm curious for you, like, how did you learn all this sales stuff? Did you know the parry and everything, or from a sales book that you had picked up that had a funky title, or was it just over the years, or did you have it kind of in the beginning? How did you develop this
Nothing
ability?
special at all. The only thing that I think, if I'm allowed to just talk about myself and pat myself on the back,
Please.
um, I just set up a routine for learning.
Hmm.
So I would spend, 15 minutes before bed. I would be reading a book, whether that's a sales book or an accounting book. And these days it's podcasts. So when I'm doing the dishes at home, when I'm doing my morning routine, when I'm brushing my teeth, when I have a train ride into the office, I've got a podcast going in my ear, right? If I'm about to hire somebody, I'm listening to an audio book about, the best questions to ask during hiring. If I have a client meeting or I need to do some training with the staff about like new sales initiatives, I'm listening to a podcast or I'm listening to an audio book. And just
Hmm.
over the course of time, of a 18-year career, I've just accumulated a lot of stuff and retained it. So
Hmm.
that's it. It's nothing special. It's just having a routine that you stick to every day. It goes back to what is within your control.
Hmm.
Your continuous learning is totally within your control. Why would you let that go to chance?
Hmm.
And if you go back to the original, statement, like if you're serious about your job, you should be continuously learning about how to get better at it, right?
Hmm.
So
Nice.
not only that, but I think that I'm also very, very lucky. I have two wonderful parents. My dad is a typical sales guy. He was working for a companion animal vaccine company, and he was number one in the country for a couple of product categories. So there might be some genetics in there. And then my mom was the church secretary for 18 years. So, I mean, I watched her, how she talked with people and how warm and engaging and friendly she was.
Hmm.
And so I had two very, very good templates. So I think I had a huge advantage for coming into recruiting.
Hmm.
And occasionally when I go back home, I'll talk shop and talk sales with dad, and he's got some good stories too. So I'm
Hmm.
very lucky from that point of view.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And they seem like they've raised a great son who's wildly successful and now sharing it with the rest of the world. So thank you for, yeah, for coming on here,
Well, the great son
and
part
sharing.
if you're judging that based off of what I've presented to you from this podcast, I will accept that compliment. Spend a week
That's
with
all I
me
know.
and spend a
I
week
don't.
with me, and then especially if I have a table tennis match that doesn't go so well, you'll probably need to go back and tell Mrs. Trapanese, my mom, you should have taught your son some better manners. He curses an awful lot when he misses the ball. So, but thank you. I will accept that compliment, and I'm very happy to be on your podcast.
Hmm.
I think what you're doing is great. I wish I could have done this sooner, but yeah, what
It's
you're
all
doing
good.
for the community is fantastic. So keep it up, and I'm looking forward to your next LinkedIn post.
Yeah, thank you, Rocco. I look forward to seeing you at a future retreat and also another Tokyo Recruiter event. So,
Sounds great. I'll be there.
all right. Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you.
Have a good rest of your week.
You too.
Talk to you soon. Bye.